Okay, a little bucketology in review, friends. Welcome to this Thursday edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris, and today we're looking back at my buckets, my preseason buckets, top whatever it was. I think I did about 160 names. We're not going to do all of them on today's show. This will be stretched over likely a couple of episodes, and I don't have an exact plan on how we're going to do this other than to just look at the sheet, because these were all in a Google sheet. And the only change made to this sheet between the beginning of the season and today was me numbering the buckets. Not that, because I call it like bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3, whatever. But it's nice to know how many players have elapsed at each point. So I added check marks, basically, so we know where we are in the different shows. Hit that like button. Subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, please do drop a 5-star review. That continues to actually be helpful even in the off season. And here it is. The 2024 Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Player Draft buckets, including punts and other little parenthetical remarks. We will zoom in real far. We will go to a full screen layout so we can put as little on the screen as humanly possible. Zoomed all the way in. Let's get that out of the way. And we begin. Bucket number 1 was 2 players deep, Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Hard to argue with that. I don't think I have anything to add there. Bucket 2 was 2 players deep, Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai obviously became the much more valuable player between the two because he played in most of his games this year, where Luka did not. But from a straight ranking standpoint, those two guys really weren't all that far apart. Shai was number 3. Luka was number 6, despite shooting only 45%. Luka could have easily been number 4 if he shot 48-ish% instead. Hair splitting a little bit. Shai was certainly better on the per game side. There's no doubt about that. But both these guys belong up near the top, so no real issues there. Bucket 3 was just Anthony Davis, and that's where he belonged. He was 4th in per game numbers overall. He would be the 5th player ranked here, so that one worked out. Other than his re-aggravation of injury, which kind of derailed things, he would have been right on point. Bucket number 4, Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum. Yes, that's right. Tatum for the durability, Halliburton for the overall stuff. And the thing is, this one ended up being right regardless. Now, Tatum was only number 10 per game, but he played in 72 ball games. So by totals, he was solid. I think the totals rank. Well, let's get the exact one. Let's get that totals rank. How do I reset this thing? 9 by totals. Halliburton was number 3 by totals. Absolutely terrific there. He very much belonged in this grouping, and I have no real issue with that ranking either. Bucket number 5 was Giannis with a punt free throw. You had to punt free throw, otherwise your rankings just won't line up. Giannis was number 3 by totals. Per game, if you were punting free throws. And I forget the exact totals mark. It's not that far off from there. Who the hell else did I just have now? Oh, James Harden would have been also in this bucket. We're back. We're at 9 players now, by the way. And again, not far off. Harden was number 16 per game, but by totals, James Harden was number 6. So he was right there. So this one pretty good also. You'll also note, by the way, that I was a little higher than most on both Harden and Halliburton so far, and everything else has been pretty much right on point. Bucket 6, which is technically players 10, 11, and 12, were Steph Curry, who was the only one here that I had listed as a safe, just like a straight 9-cat safe play. He was number 8 by totals this year, played in 70 out of 82 ball games. Good year for Steph overall. Trae Young was in this department, but he was listed with a punt turnover, which actually you almost kind of need a little bit of 2 different things. But luckily, Trae was relatively healthy again this year. That's usually his claim to fame. He played in, what was the exact final number? I think he got over 70, right? 76 excellent number of games for Trae Young. Yeah, I mean, certainly there were a lot of issues on the turnover side at 4.6 and the field goal side at 41. But if you were punting turnovers only, he already got up to number 16 on a per game basis. And then you throw totals on top of that, a guy who plays in 76 ball games, he moves farther up the board. He's a first rounder, punt turnovers by totals. So this is basically where he belonged. He's a hard guy, in my opinion, to build a team around because you are very locked in on that particular build. But this is where he belonged. This one was right. Now, Joel Embiid is a question mark here. He obviously wasn't there. I had the parenthetical remark of a health next to his name, which I think we're basically just going to dodge those guys entirely next time around. I don't, especially in the first round. Like, taking a health risk in the first round was always a disastrous thought. And we've talked about this 7 or 8 times in the offseason already. He was not a player that I advised drafting in head-to-head. He was a player that I took in one of my 10 cash leagues. It was a very low-priced roto league. I took him at the end of the first round. I'm fine with the fact that he totally tanked that team. I figured, it's the end of the first round. If it pans out, I probably win the league. If it doesn't, it's worthless. This one will be polarizing. I'll either lose it early or win it early or whatever. But overall, you know, this is not a play you're going to make. So he's bucket 6, but only if you have the. I mean, it's a nauseating thought to draft someone who has this little health tag next to their name that I put there, but you did it. And that was technically the first round on my buckets. That's 12 players deep. So that feels like a perfectly good time to tell you guys about our friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all sports betting action. Plus, the Bet Online Casino. I've been hyping it up here lately, and I feel like I should continue to do that. I like the Bet Online Casino a lot. I might even like it more than betting on sports. Don't tell anybody because I love sports, and I've been a sports handicapper for a long time with intermittent breaks mixed in there. But the Bet Online Casino is just jammed with all sorts of fun stuff. They have 27 different types of blackjack you can get in on. They have a live casino where you can play with other people against a dealer, like just an AI dealer, obviously, because it's not a thing. They've got a table game section that has the blackjack. It has 17 different types of roulette. It has craps. I love craps, but I mean, listen, craps is not the same if you don't hold the dice in your hand. But they got craps. They got 3-card rummy. They got Pai Gow. They've got war. Yeah, right out of frickin' National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation. But hey, if that's not your jam and you want to go the sports route, that's fine too. They've got live in-game betting on the action. NBA, NHL playoffs, baseball, UFC, everything you want, you've got it over at Bet Online. The game starts here. Bucket number 7 is technically the beginning of the second round. The 4 players in that bucket, and you're going to notice that the buckets are going to have more people in them, which is by design, because the farther down the board you get, the more clustered the players become. There's a big drop-off between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Davis, for instance, in per-game ranking. It's the same size between the 3 and the 4. That's third-ranked player, fourth-ranked player in per-game ranking. It's the same distance as Anthony Davis all the way down to James Harden, who's ranked 16th. And if you want to do it again, it's all the way down to like the 60th ranked guy. So this is, again, by design. Bucket 7 has Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant, LaMelo Ball with a turnover punt, and Karl Anthony Towns. I was a little bit too low on Cat to have him at, the very beginning of the second round. He was obviously better than that throughout this year. He was a mid-first rounder, and he actually stayed healthy throughout. But I do think that given his typical draft slot, which I forget exactly what it was, but it was not the first round. Can we find out how fast can we find is it draft analysis? Yeah, I think that's the one. Cat was going around 19 or 20. So to that end, we were ahead on him. Just not ahead enough. Still, if we have him in the first 4 picks of the second round, these are not in order, by the way. If you're watching with us on YouTube, this is not within the bucket. This is not the order that I like them. The bucket is just the bucket. So you pick 13, you take Cat. You pick 16, you take Cat. It's the same thing. That was a good one. Donovan Mitchell was not. Very surprising downturn for Donovan Mitchell. Steals was lower. Overall stuff was lower. Free throws were lower. He didn't need to do as much. So lower. Minutes, lower. Everything was just lower. This one was not good. He'd been there for a couple of years. It's weird. There's a significant drop off. Kevin Durant, this is about where he ended up. He was number 12 on a per game basis. He got hurt at the end of the year for a Phoenix team that was out. So that was like half tank kind of a thing. Not particularly upset about how that one went, especially because, again, he was going towards the back end of the second round. And I thought he was a damn safe pick there. And frankly, he ended up being a relatively safe pick there. And then LaMelo Ball, who, again, this is his rank only if you were punting turnovers, which you guys know I don't do all that often. But again, like, as far as that side of the thing goes, it's not that far off. He was basically a second rounder this year if you were punting turnovers. As it turns out, he was actually worse at field goal percent than he was at turnovers. He was right here, effective. Like, he was this rank, this bucket, if the punt was field goal instead of turnover. So I just had the bad category reversed, not reversed necessarily. Like, you knew what his worst two categories were going to be. You just didn't really know in what order they were going to be. So it technically should have been a punt field goal team with LaMelo Ball, but this is not that far off from where he belongs in that particular build. I still can't figure out how the hell I ended up with him on 3 roto teams. There was absolutely no reason for that. So mad at myself. Bucket 8 is effectively 17 through 21 in overall ranking, but not in any particular order. Those 5 players I had on my sheet were Domantas Sabonis, Anthony Edwards, Chet Holmgren, Scotty Barnes, and Devin Booker. Sabonis ended basically right there. I think he was number 21, so right in that pocket. And, of course, if you were punting blocks out of a big man spot or free throws, then he was a little bit better, but there was no punt listed here. Anthony Edwards was right there. He was number, I think, 16 or 17 in overall rank, in per game rank on the season. So we got that one right. Scotty Barnes, no. And honestly, I'm not really sure why I put him here. I was low on Scotty Barnes. The good news is that he was typically off the board before I had to deal with it. He was going around 18, so kind of like near the front end of this pack. Same with Chet Holmgren. I ended up with 0 Chet Holmgrens and 0 Scotty Barneses because typically one of my guys from the prior bucket would get to me. KD was usually still there. Cat was generally still there when my pick came up around whatever it was. Because here's the other thing about this year. I really only had a mid-round pick in 1, maybe 2 leagues. In one of them, I took Tyrese Halliburton in the first round, and I took Kevin Durant in the second round. The other one, I took Jason Tatum in the first round and Donovan Mitchell in the second round. So both times, a guy that I was looking for in bucket 7 was still on the board. I didn't have to go to bucket 8, but if I did, it would have been Sabonis. If I had to break this down, Sabonis would have been my favorite of that bunch, then probably Anthony Edwards, then Booker, then Holmgren, then Barnes. Barnes was straight wrong. Booker was basically right. He was ranked in the mid 20s, so off by like 4 or 5 slots here. Holmgren is a weird one because he actually started out beating this projection because Isaiah Hartenstein was hurt and he was just rolling at center. And then the hip stuff took him out for 3 months. More. It was more than 3 months. And he just never really got back from that. They played him low minutes. He didn't settle in. I think this is where Chet Holmgren belongs long-term, like around pick 20. And I think we're going to be able to get him later next year. So this is going to work out nicely for us. Honestly, same story for Scotty Barnes, who I don't know if blocks ever come back where they were the previous season when he made the big, big leap, but he's probably like a 30s kind of guy. So assessment here on bucket 7 and bucket 8. Generally, like Donovan Mitchell was too high. Scotty Barnes was too high. Even if I was lower on him than others, I needed to be even lower than that. And then Everybody else was pretty accurate. Let's go to bucket 9. We'll have to slide down a little bit on this Google Sheet. By the way, this is available to all of you guys. Has been since the day we started this thing. It's in the show description. You can pull it up. It's completely free. I've kept everything completely free. There's almost no chance I ever charge for anything I'm doing. There's a small to medium chance that at some point I have a Patreon for 99 cents where you get nothing. Basically a fully optional 99-cent donation bin. It's a change jar. Oh, did you win a couple of leagues? Great, throw 99 cents at me. But I'm never going to charge. Everything will be free regardless of if not a single person puts 99 cents in the jar, I will still do everything for free. Bucket 9, this is effectively picks 22 through 27. Yeah. Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, Alperen Şengün with a free throw punt, Freddie VanVleet, LeBron James, and Tyrese Maxey. You will notice the accuracy of 5 of the 6. Damian Lillard crushed it on this one. Definitely belonged in the end of the second round discussion. He was going later than that. To this day, I don't know why he was falling to the beginning of the third round. LeBron James went right in this pocket, and this is exactly where he belonged. LeBron was a mid-second rounder. Dame was actually a late first rounder this year. That's great. Kyrie Irving, probably, that's an oversight. He should have had the word health next to his name. We'll add that now, so there's live documentation of me doing it. Kyrie Irving is always a health risk. He goes in this range because he's going to be hurt at some point. Now, this year it turned out to be more hurt because of the ACL deal, but he was on pace for the season that we all wanted, which was like a late first rounder per game with some injury stuff hanging around, where you're almost getting him late enough here that it makes sense, but head-to-head, it's a tough call. The thing about Kyrie that made him a little bit less of a health risk and why I maybe didn't put his name there was that I think he was going to try to play. Like, he wasn't a guy that's going to sit back-to-backs. He didn't want to sit back-to-backs. So it wasn't the same thing as a Kawhi where you're like, all right, I'm going into this year knowing this guy's best-case scenario is 67 ball games. Freddie VanVleet was obviously wrong. He just had an awful, awful, awful shooting year. If he shot the ball relatively well, he probably would have been ranked in the 30s, which, again, wouldn't have been good enough to get him here, but he would have been off by like 1, maybe 2 buckets instead of like 6. Well, so it goes. Tyrese Maxey definitely overperformed before getting shut down. That's because Joel Embiid and Paul George pretty much missed the entire year. This is more likely where he belongs if you think the Sixers are even remotely close to healthy next season. As far as Şengün goes, it's another one of these same discussions we've had a number of times over and over and over again. Do you have to punt free throws if you draft Şengün? No, you don't have to, but it's going to make your life a whole hell of a lot easier. Because if you don't care about his 68, 69% foul shooting on pretty high volume, you can enjoy the 19 and 11 with 5 assists, 2 defensive stats, and decent field goal percent that Alpi brings to the table. But most people that are drafting Şengün are like, whatever, like the free throws are not great and I'll just have to deal with it. But if you're not getting a ton of blocks or field goal percent out of a guy that's ruining your free throw number, it's going to be compounded if you try to compete in those categories at any point, because the shot blockers of the NBA are either bad at field goal percent, not bad, but bad for a center, like a Holmgren or a Miles Turner or a Jaren Jackson, or they're good at field goal percent and probably S-word at free throw. I can't swear. It's just not in my nature. I'm a baseball play-by-play man at the deepest core of my soul, and those guys aren't allowed to curse, so neither am I. So Şengün, way down the board, 5th, 6th rounder if you're not punting anything. But if you're punting free throws, he's like a 3rd rounder, which gets him pretty close to this particular bucket. Probably still a little bit too high, even with a punt. But again, not a guy I had anywhere, because I wasn't building a punt free throw team on draft night. I did partway through the season, but not on draft night. I don't want to go too much farther today. We have a lot of names to cover, and I don't really want to rush them. Bucket 10 is the Jalen bucket. Bucket O Jalen's. Jalen Brunson, Jalen Williams, Jalen Johnson, and Jalen Fox. De'Aaron Fox, obviously, is the other name in bucket 10. This is too low. Funny thing is, this is too low if you're looking at overall rank, but this is technically picks 28, 29, 30, and 31, which compared to where these guys are being drafted, that was very late if you wanted Jalen Brunson. It was late if you wanted De'Aaron Fox. It was early if you wanted Jalen Williams or Jalen Johnson. Jalen Williams was going at 35. Jalen Johnson was going at 41. Jalen Brunson was going at like 19. And who the piss was De'Aaron Fox was going at 25, 26. So basically what this bucket was saying was that if De'Aaron Fox falls to you here, feel free to have at it. If Jalen Brunson falls to you here, feel free to have at it. But I don't want those guys where they were going. Instead, if those guys don't make it to you, don't go zipping along to someone else that the system has ranked higher. You want to go Jalen Johnson or Jalen Williams here. Those are the other names that you should be targeting in this zone. This was a frightfully accurate bucket for me because Brunson underachieved his rank. Fox underachieved his rank. Where did De'Aaron Fox finish this year? Forget the injury stuff. He was 37, under the mark. Jalen Brunson, around 50. Jalen Williams, we talked about these two guys. Jalen Williams and Jalen Johnson were both top 25. Nailed it. Bucket 10 was a absolute crushing. That was a smashing on my part. Bucket 11, two of these, not bad. One of them, real bad. So Evan Mobley was a good one here in bucket 11. This is picks 32, 33, and 34. Mobley's ADP at this point was 38. So this was go get him early. Don't let him dinkle around there. Cade Cunningham's ADP was 33, and I have him right at that mark. So I thought Cade was exactly where he needed to be. He had a fantastic year, finished at number 26 per game, and if you were punting turnovers, he was a first rounder, basically. He's going to go way earlier because a lot of teams are going to go super early because a lot of teams are punting turnovers. So Cunningham, he's going to need probably a little bit of a punt nomenclature for next year. And then Lauri Markkanen, who's listed here with the tank marker next to his name. I think I may have added that like a month into the season when Utah started doing weird stuff early because Lauri was a mess. Played in 47 games, ranked in the 8th round, number 90 per game. He was a back-breaking play. Luckily, you probably weren't taking him in head-to-head. Luckily, you probably didn't end up with him in many places because, again, this is a guy who had an ADP of 29 or 30, and we have him behind that. The problem is not far, half round behind that. So if he gets passed over by 3 or 4 teams and you can't get Mobley or Cunningham, this bucket would have shoehorned you into Markkanen when really he should have been another bucket back to avoid accidentally falling into him. So that one's a bad one. Needed to be even more negative on him despite the tank nomenclature because he was bad on top of it. The issue was, like, we thought he was going to miss a bunch of ball games this year, but we thought at least his per game stuff was going to be relatively decent, and it very much was not. Bucket 12 has 7 names, and now we're getting into this like really dense part of the proceedings. So I think I'd like to put that off until Friday, if at all possible. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. 25 minutes in, like if I want to do 7 names here, it's going to take us another probably 10 minutes. So let's just sort of keep meandering. I think this is really interesting. I'll probably go back and I'll do a little color coding of guys that I had early or late that worked or didn't work. And that way we can kind of look back at it in an easier to view fashion. And hopefully I'll have that cleaned up for Friday's show as well. Friday, I think later in the day, if I'm not mistaken, that I'll probably be recording with the Rotomancer, and then that show will air first thing next week. So tomorrow we'll have a little bit more on Bucket Rehash. First thing next week, we'll have a show with Eric, and then we'll pick back up with the Buckets again after that. And we'll be in June by that point. Oh, thank the Lord. Only one more month to kill until we get free agency, and then you start that sort of slow climb. But man, June is a tough month. Hey, if you got show ideas, feel free to shoot them at me, because this is a month where I don't always know what I'm doing. I mean, I never know what I'm doing, but you guys know what I mean. Thanks for watching, everybody. Again, like and subscribe on your way out. It really does matter, even this time of year. If we can just tick on a few names at a time, then we'll hit the ground running hard come July, August, September, October. The off season, yes, it's technically 6 months long, but it's really only like the first 2.5 months that are the true dog days. And we're through like half of that. Yay! I'm Dan Besbris on Twitter at Dan Besbris. Old Man Squad is the network feed. And I'll see y'all again tomorrow. So long for now, everybody.